What's up, you guys? Welcome back to Southern Draw Law. My name is James White, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor, former police officer. If you're watching this video, you may be doing so because you watched my last video, where I talked about how Chille DeCastro's misinterpretation of case law, specifically Houston versus Hill, is at least partly responsible for the growth of his confidence in believing he was justified and had a legal right to interrupt police officers in the course of their duties. Now, first, I need to make an acknowledgement of a mistake and a correction. During my last video, I said that Chille had been convicted on disorderly conduct charges. That is incorrect. He was actually convicted on two separate misdemeanor charges, one of obstructing a public officer and one of resisting a public officer. Now, after I published the video, I had several people in the comments ask me to go over what I think the judge and the officer got wrong. So in today's video, I'll be covering what I consider to be the wrongful conviction of Chille for the two offenses of obstructing a public officer and resisting a public officer. Now, the videos I'm using come from the YouTube channel Our Nevada Judges, and I encourage you to go over.
You like that? Happy Memorial Day, guys. And let me just say right at the bat, Chille, nobody that I know of blocked Chille on DeleteLawz. And if he's blocked, I'm going to make sure he gets unblocked because that's unacceptable. Not Chille, Chevy, because Chevy is one of our biggest supporters. So if that's the case, it's going to be undone. But I think there's something else going on, Chevy. But I'm going to get to the bottom of it, and I'll give you a blow-by-blow. But what you saw just now is an out-of-state attorney, again, another non-Nevada lawyer, just like me, right? Another non-Nevada lawyer saying it looked like Chille got a raw deal. So let me just say hi to everybody in the sidebar. Happy Memorial Day, everybody. Make sure to give a few moments of silence and maybe pour one out for Chesty by the end of the day. Do it now, move. And have a happy Memorial Day. And Greg B, I think you're right. I think he does a terrific breakdown. I think that this guy is a top-notch lawyer. Very, very impressed with his videos, and I'm doing a lawyer reaction on it because I think this guy is legit. And I think absolutely, if I could have an ex-cop represent me in a case like this, you better damn well believe that I'm going to want to get an ex-cop on my team, 1,000%. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to break down everything that he says. By the way, hi BZ, hi Greg B, thanks for joining. Mikey B, we'll get to the bottom of it and find out if anybody blocked Chevy, which I just have a hard time believing. I certainly would never do that. Scouts honor, however they do that in the Boy Scouts, but because you know that I'm always down for my boy Chevy. Chevy's always supporting the cause of transparency in government, so the next generation doesn't have to be in an Orwellian society. Give me a bunch of ones if you don't want to live in an Orwellian society. So thank you, SWE Observer, for joining. So far, I think I have like 10 new community members, and I'm scrambling. My daughter and I are trying to scramble to come up with some really cool private content for you guys. And thank you, April Rain. Happy Memorial Day to you. You know, God bless everybody here on the channel, and God bless the Republic and the Republic and the states and freedom and William Wallace, right? Go William Wallace. All right. Free Chevy. Give me a bunch of FCs. Free Chevy. Free Chevy. Free Chevy from being blocked from Team DLZ's channel, and free Chille as well. FC. So really quick, this lawyer, his name is Southern Draw Law, Attorney James White. I think I've commented to him on his channel before, but full disclosure, I've never met him. I know he was a cop, and so far what I've seen is he's got some spot-on observations. I don't agree with everything that he says about Chille and about everything going on around Chille's case, but I do agree with a lot of the observations in that he comes to the same conclusion, which is that Nevada, the arrest itself, in my opinion, was unlawful. And the way that this case unfolded shouldn't have unfolded the way that it did. And so I'm going to go ahead and play the rest of the video, but I'm also going to discuss some other things that I think could have been helpful that were sort of touched on the Team DLZ channel today. And that has to do with pitches motions that could have been brought in California that you couldn't bring in Nevada, apparently, but other things that you could have tried to do to get that officer's personnel file. And apparently, if you look at the video that we did today on the Team DLZ channel, Apparently there were 900 complaints that got referred to a citizen review board that are all allegedly available as public records, but you've got to know how to do the public records request. So I invite all of you to reach out to BZ Watchdog as I'm encouraging him to get his book finished about how to do these records requests. I want you to blow him up so bad that he'll spend the time to write his book and finish it so he can make a little bit of money to support himself when he's out there auditing, by you just overwhelming him with requests, because his stuff is so good now, guys. You got to go check out BZ Watchdog. All right. So really quick, thank you, Tim C. Good seeing you. If anybody has any questions, I like to answer questions and be engaging with the audience. I don't like just shooting stale videos and editing them. Editing all the uhs and does out, it's time consuming and it's just not normal. To me, it's just normal to be a human. But I'll try not to say as much as possible. So thanks again, SWE Observer. And oh yeah, Freedom April Rain, absolutely. So we're going to go back and we are going to play the rest of this, and I'm just going to sort of go along and stop it at times where I think it's necessary to give context.
There and watch the channel, watch the trial video in its entirety, and then you can judge for yourself. Now that we have that out of the way, let's look at the arrest video, and then we'll go over the reasons I believe he was wrongly convicted. Let's check it out.
So just one thing that I want to throw out there really quick is, in this particular case, you saw Chille backing up, but one of the things that we never saw in the original trial was Chille's exculpatory evidence of his own footage. I mean, the whole point of auditing is that you have your own footage so you can use it as evidence to support your claim, and as well as hold the government accountable. So if they do something that's unlawful, you have a record of it. So to me, that's just really disconcerting. To me, as a lawyer, that is really, really strange. It's something that I never understood. Put it in the comments if you guys know what actually happened there, as far as why that didn't get into the record. I'm not going to get into what I know, but I want you to tell me what you think happened. And because I want you guys to start thinking like lawyers. If you're going to watch lawyer reaction videos, at least watch something where you can learn a little bit about the law. And in this case, Chille was backing up, and that's what was going on. And so let's get into what this former police officer, who is also a defense attorney, has to say.
Okay, here's a perfect example of what I was referring to in my last video when I talked about Chille's misunderstanding or misinterpretation of case law. You hear him making a comment about how the officer releasing the driver and ending the stop is a violation of the Rodriguez decision from 2015. If you've watched much of my content at all, you know that we talk about Rodriguez and Mims a bunch on this channel because both of them are extremely relevant in considering the scope of police authority on traffic stops. In my opinion, there wasn't a single issue related to Rodriguez in the officer choosing to end the stop of the driver, let her go, and then deal with Chille. Remember that what Rodriguez stands for is that the police can't extend a traffic stop unreasonably in order to conduct conduct investigations other than the original mission of the stop. The defendant in Rodriguez was issued a warning for a traffic violation, and then the stop was basically over. The officer, though, refused to release Rodriguez because he wanted to hold him back for a canine sweep. And so even though it was just a few minutes, making him wait for that canine sweep, the court said, look, you didn't have any reasonable articulable suspicion outside of the original traffic stop in order for you to justify holding him to wait for the canine sweep. So any amount of time is unreasonable where you don't have reasonable articulable suspicion to support the detention. So again, Rodriguez is about unreasonably extending the stop to do other stuff that's not related to the traffic infraction. Here, the officer just ended the traffic stop and he chose not to cite the driver because he decided to deal with Chille instead. So ironically, the only actual Rodriguez violation that might have been at play was caused by Chille himself, because that driver ended up being detained a little bit longer for a reason that had nothing to do with her traffic violation, dealing with Chille. And so by choosing to let her go as he pivoted to dealing with Chille, the officer was actually closer to adhering to the holding in Rodriguez than he was in violating it. Now, back to the video.
So you guys caught that. So, he has a difference of opinion with Chille, and, so that's his point of view. The bottom line is he thinks that Chille was falsely convicted. So, but I'm giving you the understanding that every lawyer, no matter how much experience they have, will have a differing point of view. And you'll even see that judges in courts of appeal will have dissenting opinions, or they'll dissent in part and join in part. So I just want everybody to understand that not everyone is going to agree on everything. And that is in the fabric of the DNA of a republic, because the individual is what matters, what the individual believes. And so that's another reason why it's very, very important to have very highly educated individuals as jurors, because they have to have this basic minimum understanding of what justice is. And so when you see on your face, this guy's filming, he's backing up, he's not causing a problem. And then all of a sudden he becomes the focus of attention of this officer who already, by the way, that's not part of Mr. White's video, I don't believe. But by the way, great video, great production. Part of the issue is based upon the 911 tapes, that officer's stop was already over. It was done already. So I'm just letting you guys know that it was a completed stop. And whether or not Rodriguez is going to be interpreted, the way he says it's going to be interpreted, that's up in the air. I'm not going to attack him like some guys would and try to put words in his mouth. I'm just going to go along with the flow and let him state his point of view. And then I want you guys to tell me what you think, because I still think that either way, the reasoning may be different. It may be flawed in some areas. It may be better in some areas, but the reasoning leads to the same result. And so let me get back and play this thing. By the way, thanks for joining me on Memorial Day again, guys. I really appreciate it.
Now, trial officer Bork ended up being able to testify to a bunch of nonsense about a 21-foot safety rule. Let's take a look at that testimony.
In the video from your body-worn camera, it shows, the state of your stop with the Hyundai driver. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Okay. And at some point prior to you making contact with the defendant, you noticed him kind of recording further away from the vehicle, correct?
Yes. Yes.
And at that point in time, you didn't have a problem with that. You didn't really approach the defendant yet, correct?
Correct.
It was when he started making contact with the driver, your stopped driver, that you approached him and asked him to back up.
Yes.
And at some point in time in the video, it's recorded, you told him that he is allowed to record, but he just needed to back up.
Yes.
Okay. And what was the reason for you trying to maintain, one, the lack of no contact with the stopped person, and two, trying to gain distance between the defendant, yourself, and the stopped driver?
My first intention is I wasn't trying to delay my traffic stop any longer than it had to be. I was trying to make it as short as possible for the driver. And then the second was for officer safety. What we're taught in the academy is that for a normal human's reaction time with open ground, anything within 21 feet, that suspect would be able to charge an officer.
Now, just so you guys know, so now we're going to get into a discussion of the so-called 21-foot rule. And so what I like about this lawyer, I think is what I like about this lawyer, his name is White, is that he sort of breaks down part of the 21-foot rule, sort of its nexus and how it started. And then in one of the videos that I did, it goes into how the courts and DAs and attorneys general have sort of used expert witnesses and whatnot to try to define it as a way to avoid liability for shooting someone outside of 21 feet. So basically, the way that the courts look at it, based on this Ninth Circuit case that I did, and there's a video on my channel about this, about maybe 30 videos ago. Really great video. I really covered it well, I think. And it talks about, and I think we even had a retired cop and BZ watchdog on too to talk about it. So I tried to give it as much, let everybody have their speak. But basically, what it looked like, from my point of view, the courts are trying to do, or at least the attorneys general and the district attorneys are trying to do, is say, well, if anyone's inside that 21-foot area and you shoot them, that's pretty much a green light as far as not getting charged with manslaughter or something. That's kind of the way they're looking at it, as a defense to police shootings. And I know that, in this particular case, there wasn't the only foundation that was laid for this officer's experiences was some esoteric discussion about a 21-foot rule. And so now we're going to get into this attorney's point of view on this. And I want y'all to pay close attention, because I really like hearing different perspectives. With law, you're never going to get the same answer from a different lawyer. It's almost never going to happen. So here we go. Let's go. Boom.
All right. And at that point in time, you were the only officer present, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so let me give you guys a little bit of insight on this issue. There is, in fact, a 21-foot rule, but it really has nothing to do with how close you allow a bystander to get to you as an officer on a stop or in an interaction with the public. The true 21-foot rule is related to the reactionary gap that exists when dealing with a person with an edged or impact weapon in a deadly force scenario. Without getting too far into the weeds, the rule is basically this. A person with a knife or other edged or impact weapon can close the distance and use that weapon against an officer from a distance of 21 feet before the officer can effectively draw their weapon and fire. This was based on experiments done informally by a police lieutenant named Dennis Tueller more than a couple decades ago. I've actually linked an interview with Tueller in the description if you guys are interested in watching it and learning a little bit more about this. But in his experiments, it basically started as an experiment on the range. But in the video, Tueller basically explains that the experiment got started because they were on the range among a group of academy classmates. And then one of them asked the question, look, if a person were to charge you from this distance, and 7 yards or 21 feet is the distance in question, because that's a typical firing line distance in firearms training. And so the question was posed by one of the academy cadets as to whether an officer could react and effectively draw and fire their weapon from 7 yards or 21 feet away from an unexpectedly charging suspect. That's where it came from. So it has no legitimate application in law enforcement training to how you might deal with someone who's even considered an agitator on a traffic stop. This was just some garbage that was likely concocted in the trial prep process between the officer and the DA, Agnes Botello. Now, this represents one of my biggest pet peeves with attorneys, regardless whether they're DAs or defense counsel. They don't know what they don't know, and they don't even seem to be curious about it. This is the reason I get a chuckle out of people when they suggest in the comments that they'd never hire a lawyer who used to be a cop. Well, I mean, okay, but then you're going to miss out on hiring someone who was trained on the 21-foot rule and has trained other people on it.
Yeah, and I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think that it would be crazy not to hire a former law enforcement officer as a defense attorney. I think it would just be absolutely a great move. But that's just my point of view. I think that that there's no substitute for experience. I don't have much faith in degrees or academic qualifications. I see that the movers and the shakers, the risk takers, those are the people that I'm looking at. So this particular guy here, you can tell that he's got a good head on his shoulders. And I agree with him about the 21-foot rule not having any application at all. So what I've been telling you guys, in my opinion, is they should have tried to figure out a way, if it was California, to get the officer's personnel file. I'd want to find out what he's doing in a private parking lot on a stop with someone with no registration or any stuff like that, and not even giving him a citation. That's kind of weird. Pretty attractive woman, giggling, and all. It's just too much going on. I'm a curious attorney. I'm trying to find out any angle that I can to get my client off. As soon as I get that case on my desk, I am on fire like that Ghost Rider motorcycle guy, turning to flames, start going for it, because that's how I feed my family, So every time I'm out there, I'm like the knight on my horse. Okay, I know I have a battle to fight for my people. That's how you got to think. That's how, is a good lawyer. Well, if you're good at anything in life, if you're out there fighting for your people, you got to think like that. Give me a bunch of ones if you're old school and you think that way. Yeah. That's why people like doing business with me. So let's go ahead and let's hear what the rest of this guy has to say. By the way, I don't know what state he's in, but I'm assuming he's from the South. Give me a bunch of ones if you know what state he's in. I think a lot of the stuff he says is pretty good, and some of it I don't agree with, like I said, but again, that's the way the cookie crumbles.
Then who can effectively dismantle the officer's credibility as it relates to that rule and stop the officer from improperly trying to conflate deadly force in an edged weapons training scenario with the threat level imposed on an officer by a person who's filming a traffic stop and has declared himself to be a journalist. Or you might miss out on someone who knows how to effectively question an officer about a pacing violation, or who knows how impossible it is to establish a reliable pacing situation anyway, or the procedures an officer is supposed to follow in checking for calibration on a radar unit, or what a Doppler tone sounds like, or how you're supposed to visually estimate the speed of a vehicle and then match it.
I get all that. I just want to get further into this, see if there's anything else important for us.
Hello did here. And if your lawyer doesn't included, isn't the 21-foot rule related to an encounter where the officer is caught off guard by a person with an edged or impact weapon? I mean, surely you're not suggesting that you're trained to assume that everyone is a deadly threat and you need to keep a 21-foot distance.
So there you go. So you see what he's saying, right? He's saying this is how I would have cross-examined this officer. So basically, he's deconstructing all the problems with Chille's case. That's something that not even I have done. And so, look, I don't want to play this whole video. I know it's Memorial Day, and I know that y'all are not probably looking to spend another hour listening to some lawyer, but I just want y'all to know that I think you should watch this video. I'm not saying that you need to believe everything that he says or any of the negative stuff that he says about Chille and all that. What I'm saying that you should say is that you should say he was fair enough, despite any negative remarks that you may feel he's made about Chille in the past. The fact that he has given Chille a pass on this arrest tells you that he is a fair lawyer and that he's done the research that I have done. And although we have slightly different theories in how we reached our conclusion, we both reached the same conclusion. And that's what I wanted to point out. So I am going to keep playing some of the stuff. I may fast forward, and Mr. White, I'm not being disrespectful if I fast forward through stuff. It's just for brevity's sake. I want to get to the meat. And right now, obviously, you're doing some cross-examination. And this is a learning moment because some of the people on my channel want to learn how to become lawyers. And I teach a course on how to become a lawyer without law school in California. And so this is a teachable moment. I want everybody to watch this because it's the emotional impact teaching that sticks. It's when you really feel it. Those are the kind of teachers that help you learn and retain. So I really appreciate that you're allowing me to have fair use over this, to use this as a teaching moment. And I'm going to go ahead and keep on going.
Between you and them. And you'd agree with me that the actual training is related to how to navigate a potential deadly threat, specifically with a person utilizing an edged or impact weapon, and not how to interact with the public or a person filming a traffic stop, wouldn't you? So how many times, officer, roughly would you say that you've been recorded in this manner by people? Any of them try to attack you with edged or impact weapons? Now, Were you able to see Mr. DeCastro's hands during your interaction? Well, could you explain to the court why it might be important for you to see his hands? Isn't it true that it's pretty accepted among law enforcement that if you can see a person's hands, there's a reduced likelihood that that person can produce a hidden weapon and attack you with it? In fact, doesn't the rule go something like this? If you can see their hands, they can't kill you with them. And you could see that Mr. DeCastro was clearly holding a cell phone and narrating a video about your traffic stop. Right? And that was from the beginning of your interactions with him. And then after you engaged with him a little bit, he actually produced a second cell phone in his other hand, right? Have you ever seen a video of an officer being attacked? Officer Bork, how many times would you say you've seen those? Have you ever seen one where the attacker was holding a phone and narrating a video? Okay, so you've never seen that on video, but what about your personal experience? Has it been your personal experience that you've been attacked by a person?
Okay, and we don't have to, look, we don't have to do the whole video, but if anybody's ever watched Perry Mason, that's what they were expecting his lawyer to do. Now, in this case, many people are saying, well, it's just because Chille wanted to run the show and Michael was supposed to only be assisting him. But the problem with that argument is, as a lawyer, well, number one, if a client told me that, I wouldn't represent him. But number two, if I did make an arrangement for that to take place, I would be absolutely 1000% ready to assume that the court is not going to let me get away with that. Give me a bunch of ones if you understand that thought process. So, and it's typical Marine Corps training, right? You know, prepare for the worst and plan for the best, but prepare for the worst, right? You want to, that's just that typical mentality. If you're going to be a good trial attorney, you can't assume that some judge who might be hostile to one of these so-called common law, whatever they're trying to paint him as, is going to let him go in there and do that. You can't assume that, especially in Nevada. So as a good lawyer, you should be ready to make those arguments. By the way, almost every question that prosecutor asked the cop, it was like leading, compound, disjunctive, conjunctive. I mean, so many objections that should have been made to preserve the record, and they weren't made. So you can see, like I've been trying to tell you guys this whole time, same deal. Let's hear what else he's got to say. This is really great how he would cross-examine.
Holding one or more cell phones, doesn't it sort of reduce the likelihood in your mind that a guy holding a cell phone filming a video is going to harm you? Now, Michael Mee, the attorney of record here, appeared to head in that direction with his cross, but he never really got there. Bork appeared, at least to me, to be improperly coached by the DA. I say that because on the video, he clearly expressed that he was concerned for the privacy of the driver. He completely changed his story on the stand. Remember in the video, he said, "Get away from my driver. She has a right to privacy. This is not any of your business." On the stand, he admitted that he understood she didn't have an actual right to privacy in public, but he intentionally asserted that to Chille because he could tell that by continuing to do the same thing and tell Chille to back up, that wasn't going to work. So he had to use a different strategy, and that he probably had a better chance of appeal.
Dude's a legit trial lawyer, right? This guy is a legit trial lawyer. You can tell, and he's quick, and you can see that none of the stuff happened that should have normally happened. Now, for me, I try to beat my cases procedurally before they even get to a jury. If I'm going to trial, going up against this guy, man, I better be prepared. And I'm telling you right now, this guy knows what he's talking about, guys, when it comes to how he would posture and move through a trial. And this is just really great. Everything he's saying is just right on the money. Keep on listening. You know what? I don't know who this guy is, and I recommend you take a look at his channel and consider subscribing. I'm not gonna endorse him because I don't know if there's any bad blood between him and anybody. But I do tell you right now, this particular instance of what he's saying, I'm going to agree with it. Keep on going.
Appealing to his humanity and asking him to consider someone's privacy in public. Remember, by this point, the Bork has already testified that he never got the opportunity to tell Chille how far to back up because Chille was so argumentative. He suggested that he had to take control of him before he could tell him to back up the 21 feet or past the tractor trailer or whatever he said he would tell him to do. But he did have time to psychoanalyze Chille and determine that he was the type of person that could be psychologically manipulated using a different justification for asking him to back up. I mean, it took me exactly 2 seconds to determine Chille couldn't be reasoned with psychologically. By the way, you can tell by his videos that it takes most cops who interact with him about the same amount of time because most of them just eat the loss and choose not to engage with him, probably under the same diagnosis. But this guy, this Brandon Bork, he's a regular old Jordan Peterson. He's going to appeal to him psychologically and employ a different strategy to sort of manipulate him. Get the fuck out of here with that. I don't buy it. He sounds like a guy who was advised by the prosecutor and during that meeting learned for the first time ever that there was no right to privacy in a public place, and further advised pursuant to that by the prosecutor that he's going to need a different.
Wow, guys, this guy has a processing speed like a supercomputer. Give me a bunch of ones for this guy. Give me a bunch of ones if you think we should try to pro hoc him in on the case, the crime scene arrest tape case. Give me a bunch of ones. Somebody call this man and ask him if he'll try to pro hoc in so we can get him to fight this unlawful crime scene arrest tape case. All right, guys, I want you to do that. I think this is the answer. The guy's the truth right here. This guy is the guy. He's like he's the anti-Chille and the pro-Chille. He's the yin and the yang, all mixed in one. He's just what we need right now. It's like in case of fire, break glass. Listen to what this guy has to say.
Different explanation as to why he said that on the scene. Now, me did have a period of effective questioning where he went on to ask Bork why he didn't engage Chille until he noticed he was talking to the driver, but he missed a huge opportunity here. He didn't emphasize that the words were the only threat. I might have asked, so did Mr. DeCastro change his position when he began engaging the driver? No. So how far away from her was he when he began talking with her? And how far away were you? Were you able to hear from the inside of your car what he was saying? No. So it's not like his words were so loud that they kept you from being able to hear dispatch, run your checks, write a ticket, anything like that, right? You're neutralizing the notion that he was intentionally trying to keep him from doing what he was supposed to do. And Officer Bork, you would agree that he wasn't talking to you at this time, right? So again, how would they prove that he intended to hinder or obstruct the traffic stop if he wasn't even talking to the officer? So Officer Bork, you'd also agree with me that at that point,
and check it out, guys. This is what's so cool. And this is another method to the madness with Chille. Notice how he tries not to converse. And the last video, hello, is for suckers. Well, that's why. Because as soon as you converse with them, they can use that as a basis to say that you were conversing with them and thereby interfering with their conversation or their investigation. Do you get this so far? Look, the guy knows what he's talking about. Just because he gets, in your mind a little bit crazy, freedom fighters do that sometimes. Here, keep listening to what this defense attorney has to say. I'm very impressed so far with most of what he's had to say.
You were focused on the driver and that he was mostly trying to give the driver information that they may or may not have been interested in. And he wasn't doing anything that kept you from doing the ordinary stuff you do to conduct the tasks associated with a traffic stop. And again, you didn't engage him before he talked to her, right? And your testimony is that he did not move forward in the process of him talking to her. So what you're saying is that the sheer fact that words were being exchanged between the driver and Mr. DeCastro is what elevated him from a normal person filming a traffic stop whose proximity to the stop hadn't changed, by the way, based on your testimony, to a potential deadly threat who, pursuant to your training, can get the drop on you if they're closer than 21 feet. Is that what you're saying? So just for the sake of clarification, is it 21 feet from you that your protective bubble extends, or is it 21 feet from the driver? Because at the time that you told him to back up, he was well beyond 21 feet from you. I mean, you were in your patrol vehicle and the driver was.
So hear me out, guys. Look, I know a lot of people will just throw these videos together, right? I've seen people do it and they miss so much stuff. They don't even watch stuff. I've even had guys tell me, I didn't watch your video. One of my other people did. And therefore I'm going to start attacking you and saying things about you that aren't even true because someone else said it. You can tell that this dude probably spent, based upon this, what he's talking about right here, this is good. I would say 10 to 12 hours of research that he's done on this case. He has got this case down as if he was ready to go to trial. Now, there was one trial lawyer I knew, and he was. There was this one trial that the mic cut out for a second. Sorry about that, people. There was this one trial lawyer that I knew. His name was Michael Hughes. He was a multi-billionaire. He went after Philip Morris. He's the cigarette attorney guy. He's the one that exposed all the lies where the doctors were lying and just like the pharmaceutical companies, they were hiring all these expert witnesses to lie and getting them jobs at the government so they could lie and tell people that cigarettes were healthy and run advertising campaigns for women. So women would think that smoking cigarettes was like part of the feminist movement and all this stuff. And he exposed all that stuff. And he got like a $28 billion punitive damages award against Philip Morris. And I remember I saw him in action at the Court of Appeal when I worked over at the Court of Appeal at the Ronald Reagan Courthouse in downtown LA, and seeing him walk in with just a thin piece of notepad, a yellow notepad, and just arguing the case without any notes. He just had the notepad just to hold it, I think. I don't even remember that he ever even looked at it. Anyways, he passed away from cancer recently. Michael Piuze, Piuze. Look him up. Amazing guy. I did a really great bio for him. This guy right here kind of reminds me maybe of a young version of a Michael Piuze. And I do not compliment lawyers that much. But this dude, just to make a YouTube video, this is a good 10 hours worth of research right here. Keep on listening to this guy.
Ahead of you in her vehicle, and he was a third of the way through an 18-foot parking spot about 10 feet from the driver. So he was a good 21 to 25 feet from you, right? And it was actually you who began to engage him and close the distance such that you eliminated the 21 feet between the two of you. So how is this really about officer safety? Also, are you saying that it's codified in official Las Vegas Metro police policy that there's a default 21-foot radius of protection to be established around any officer in any interaction? Or is that at the individual officer's discretion? Are you saying that you personally, after having the 21-foot rule training related to edge weapon defense and deadly threats, have decided that for your personal safety, you need to create your own 21-foot rule? I ask because it seems awfully strange to me that as we watch this video, it was in fact just words that caused you to take action and engage the defendant. And prior to you trying to arrest the defendant, he didn't do anything but say things back to you. I mean, you just acknowledged that you didn't see him as a threat from 10 feet away until he exchanged words with your driver. And then you observed him tie up both hands with cell phones and magically somehow become more of a threat after he said something insulting to you. Do you consider that a coincidence? Now, I may have not done any better than Michael Me. I'm not trying to be super critical of him. I'm just saying if he missed.
Oh, he's so that was a good joke. This guy is doing a million times better than Michael Me, and he broke down that 21-foot rule argument clear as day for everyone to see. It basically, like I've been saying, like every novice. So here's the big problem that we have, guys. And this is something that I really want people to look at. You have an entire group of people who hate this guy, who hate Chille so much that they don't even care about what the law says or what the law is. And that should make them personally ashamed of themselves. I'm not the only lawyer who thinks that Chille got a raw deal here. This is another lawyer who has been highly critical of Chille. I always try and present a united front, of course, but Chille and I don't always agree on everything. But the things that we do agree on make our relationship far more valuable as friends than enemies, and as allies than enemies as well. So just keep that in mind. You're not always going to agree with everyone on everything, but sometimes you have to form loose alliances, and sometimes those loose alliances will become stronger over time. In the meantime, let's keep on watching what this gentleman has to say, because I think he's really good.
That's the chance he probably missed. Now, there is hope for Chille because the Nevada Supreme Court of Appeals looked at the statute he was arrested for and interpreted it for the first time in 2024 in the case of Wilson versus the First Judicial District Court. The opinion is long because the statute had been on the books since 1911 and had never been interpreted by the courts. So regardless of whether this conviction gets overturned, the officer won't be held liable for the statute that hadn't been interpreted prior to his enforcement of it. But the court basically interpreted the statute to mean that in order to be guilty of obstruction, the conduct of the defendant had to be limited to fighting words and physical conduct, and they even applied a specific intent standard that said that the fighting words and physical conduct had to be specifically intended to hinder or delay the officer or to obstruct the investigation. That means that the state not only has to prove your conduct was physical or fighting words, but it also has to prove your state of mind to the extent that they must show the intent was to obstruct the officer by hindering or delaying. Chille made it clear, as he normally does, that he feels people were victims of the police and that he's recording for their safety and for transparency, regardless of the fact that we all might think it's obnoxious in the way that he does it. Bork attempted to arrest him before anything more than that happened. While the officer won't be held liable, the judge might be overturned here because she should have arguably been aware of it. This is likely another huge opportunity missed by trial counsel. He had the opportunity because this thing was set for trial like 4 different times. If you go through the...
Yeah, that's right. And that's the reason why it's sort of disconcerting, because if his lawyer would have made better arguments on appeal, it seems like there would have been a better chance for it getting reversed. In other words, objecting to all the leading questions, asking and doing better direct, cross, direct, redirect, all that stuff just needed to be done in a much better way. And that's what this lawyer, Mr. White, is saying. We're going to go ahead and we're going to let him finish up. Obviously, he's a way better lawyer than me. Let's hear what this gentleman has to say.
Our Nevada judge's YouTube channel, you can see update after update where they've changed the trial date multiple times. He had plenty of time after February to find this case and brief it to the court to at least put the court on notice that this case had been decided in the way that the law was interpreted was favorable to his client. I mean, how do you not know that a case was decided a month before your trial that limited the application to statute your guy was arrested for to fighting words and physical conduct? That's a huge thing for somebody who's arrested over just words. Now, the court, in its opinion on Wilson, did specifically say that failure or refusal to follow a lawful order could be grounds under the statute if you can prove the existence of specific intent to hinder or delay. So that's why bringing out all this stuff on cross is so important. The lawyer has to be able to show that the initial conduct of his client was not obstructive.
That's right.
Because it lacked specific intent. It wasn't fighting words, and it didn't have a physical component to it other than being within what the officer considered to be his 21-foot bubble, which is pretty unreasonable. He has to be able to show that the officer was attempting to make a false arrest based on his arbitrary safety bubble. It's the only way to make the argument that the order was unlawful. And that's the only way Chille could mount a defense for the second charge of resisting, is by showing that the original arrest was unlawful.
I join with that argument 100%. 100%. Keep listening to what he has to say.
As far as the judge goes, one of my fellow attorney subscribers, Tanya, from the channel Esquire Audits, suggested to me, in a less colorful way, admittedly, that I might be very careful not to blow out my knee jumping to conclusions that the judge in this case was biased. Now, she has a valid argument, but this is my reasoning. I'd like to see her record of incarcerating people in this charge before I could be really sure. But I'd be willing to bet.
Well, we already know that Chille did all that research. He had his Team DLZ people do that research, and Chille's the only one ever based on the research that they did. So, I'm not making any allegations about bias or anything like that, but I think that it was clear for the whole world that it was an emotionally charged moment for everyone in the courtroom, including the judge. And that in that moment, it was something I'll let you guys decide. I am not going to go there, but I think that if you look at Chille's research, you'll see that this is the only time, based upon the evidence that they've been able to uncover, that this has ever happened, ever in her judgeship. So let's go ahead and keep on listening. And if I'm wrong, I'll retract it immediately because I'm not even making the allegation. I'm saying that based on their research, this is what they're saying. But I would correct myself instantly if someone told me that that is incorrect and could show me that that's incorrect. But based upon the information that I've seen, let's listen to what he has to say, because this is the conclusion that Mr. DeCastro and his team was able to come up to. And I was not involved in this particular research, but nonetheless, that is on his channel for you to review. But let's just keep watching, and then I'll get to your questions and comments in the sidebar, because I know April Rain, I Am God, Greg B., and Kirk Bronson all need to be heard. Plead the fifth to do that, right? Okay, so here we go.
That she's never given anybody stacked 90s for two charges arising out of the same incident and putting them in jail for 180 days for this.
So you understand stacked 90s, right? That means that she ran the sentences. So when the first one ran out, the next one would start. Typically, when you have two 90s, they'll put them together. So they both run at the same time. I hope this is making sense. So this guy's obviously a very experienced criminal defense lawyer. And I've been doing personal injury for so many years now that criminal defense is not my first nature kind of thing. So when I listen to him, it brings back all these memories because it's kind of fun doing criminal defense. The problem is you're always out of your office because every day you're in court. You got to show up in the morning and take your cases. So for me, once the law firm started to expand, I had to become more of a manager and doing more litigation and less appearances and relying on these young bucks he's younger than me, I think, to go out and do this other stuff. But then eventually we just stopped doing criminal altogether. But yeah, we could get into it again. I'm getting motivated now, man. This guy's motivating the heck out of me. Maybe I should get my Nevada bar. Give me a bunch of ones if you think I should take the Nevada bar. I'll tell you what, if we can get my channel built up enough where I'm teaching an online law school course, I'll take the Nevada bar, sure, because I'll be studying the exam with you guys every day. I'm eligible to take it. I've been practicing law long enough where I could do it. I just got to send in the paperwork. So I'll do it at some point, if you guys motivate me. Now, let's go ahead and keep watching this guy because I think he's really good.
This, especially where the DA was asking for a suspended sentence on probation. I'd be willing to bet she hasn't even given anyone else concurrent 90s to serve on those charges where the DA was asking for a suspended sentence on probation. Now, in my neck of the woods, there's like 7 or 8 factors the judge has to put on the record in sentencing before consecutive sentencing out of the same incident would be upheld. But Nevada has an insane amount of discretion given to judges in consecutive sentencing. The general rule is that concurrent sentencing is favored if you did one series of things in the same incident. But I looked at like 100 cases in Nevada and they were all upheld because the standard for overturning them is so high. You basically have to show, best I can tell, that the judge used impalpable, defined as hard to understand or comprehend, or highly suspect evidence in making her sentence determination. The judge here found a middle road, used evidence in the record to justify her sentences, and I don't suspect that they're going to be overturned. Due to the wide discretion the appellate courts have given judges to determine whether consecutive sentencing is appropriate under the circumstances. Again, this is somebody claiming to be a constitutional law.
So that's about the sentencing, okay? So he's talking about the concurrent, like stacking the sentences. He's talking about that. And of course he gets into the comments about constitutional law scholar and all that. I mean, I don't want to get too much into that. I don't want to get into all that stuff. I think we've seen enough of them. Y'all can watch the video on your own. Look, I'm going to give credit when I see people who are good at what they do. But at the same token, in this case, Chille's not just a client, he's also a friend of mine. So of course I'm biased and I don't want to hear negative things about him because I'm also a friend. And when you're someone's friend, you don't want to cast aspersions or let anybody else trash your friends. And if your friends have done stupid shit, it doesn't matter. You present a united front in public and you always build each other up in public. And if you have issues, you can do those things privately. Give me a bunch of ones if you think that those are the kinds of friends that you should have. People that you like and trust, and people that will air their dirty laundry out with you privately rather than publicly. I think that's very important. Now, with respect to his legal prowess, on the other hand, I think this gentleman is top notch. I think he's a terrific lawyer from what I've seen so far. And I conclude with him on the stacking. And then in his video, he goes into other things. But ultimately, what we both agree upon is that Chille got a raw deal, and he probably should not have been, well, for me, for sure, should not have been convicted. Now, whether or not the stacking gets reversed, I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Whether or not the other portions of the case get reversed, maybe. Because if the conviction itself is reversed, then the stacking won't really matter. So we don't have to get too deep into the minutia. But anybody, for right now, let me just look over in the sidebar and see if I can answer any questions. And by the way, everybody, please thank Let's OTVO and BZ Watchdog for doing such a great job in keeping all the trolls out and people who are just not being good people who want to help the country and people who just want to tear people down and cause mischief. I really appreciate you guys. And if somebody can ever find Miss Constitutional Law Scholar, please tell her that I apologize. Now I understand what she meant by doing a better job moderating. I just came from the background that we're not supposed to be involved in censorship. So if there's a way we can get her back, that would make me very happy. I would like to be able to report back to Chille that she's back. Now, beyond that, thank you, Forrest Goodwin, and for your thanks. And yeah, thanks, mods, for sure. Thanks, Will Jr. J. Rockstar as well. Thank you too, Will. I guess I love you in a brotherly kind of way, at least. And thank you, Chevy. And I will for sure ask around and find out why, for whatever reason, you were not able to access Team DLZ's website today. Please report back to me if this is the first time that that's happened, because whatever it takes, if it's something that's on our end or their end, I will make sure that you have the ability to be there, because you're super important and you're a part of Team DLZ, of course. So we want you there. That would be crazy. So please, all you crazy conspiracy theorists, forget about it and trying to start nonsense. These people have proven themselves to be good people, and we don't want any trouble. So leave us alone. Now, BZ Watchdog says that Zimmerman is messing around with the website. I don't know. Hey, Mountain Man, good to see you. He has choice words for the cop. Maybe that's probably true. April Rain, thank you, BZ Watchdog, and let's OTVO. Michael, too much love to all who support Chille and everyone that's in the team and just joining. Much love and respect. Hey, I think that that's really nice of you. And I'll be honest with you, there have been a few core followers of Chille who have been very loyal, and I can tell that they really care about him, and they've come over here. And I think that we all know that every one of us may be suffering from some kind of trauma in our life, whether it be being arrested and beaten by cops, whether it trauma from having an abusive parent. And so I believe that the people who have joined me on my channel are those people who recognize the good in people. And that's what I want to focus on when we talk about Chille, is I want to talk about the good things that he's done and the good work that he's done for veterans and the good work that we're going to do moving forward as he gets released, and going down to Uvalde, Texas, and trying to help out that woman who had her kids taken away from her by Child Protective Services, who rescued her kids from that school shooting massacre when the police were cowardly and wouldn't do anything. So those are the types of things that I want to focus on. Give me a bunch of ones if those are the types of things that you want to focus on too. Now, Bruce R., I really like it that you show up all the time. And then Greg B. always has these cool, let me see if I can put this up here. Yeah, so Greg B is always putting up crazy stuff, and I appreciate that. Chevy, give me a bunch of ones. Yeah. So, yeah, I just don't look. It's already been almost an hour, and I have work to do as well, guys. I already did. I feel like I'm on a marathon. You can watch the rest of Mr. White's video. I'd love to have Mr. White on and talk to him, and and try to understand where he's coming from, and maybe even refer him some cases if he's. I have a network of lawyers all over the country who come to me and ask me if I can help them on stuff, because I've been on the internet for so long in the SEO world. And so, anytime I can help a fellow lawyer who can offer insight to help my core mission, which is to hold the government accountable, hold large corporations accountable, and stand up for the commoner, because I am a man of the people, and I'm also a man for the people. And I want all of you to start thinking that way as well. Don't be selfish. If you have something that you can offer, try and form parallel systems and do business with trustworthy people and build each other up. And now I know what all of you guys meant. And that's why I made sure to get some good moderators. And I'm doing my best to try and save face and get Miss Constitutional Law Scholar to come back. So Jessica, Kyrie, thank you so much. I don't know if I'm that great of a lawyer, but I definitely care about people. And I know that I'm better than most lawyers, but I know there are a lot of other lawyers who are much better than me at law. The difference between me and most lawyers is that I genuinely care about my clients, because I almost died in a rollover accident as a youth. And I remembered how personal injury attorneys were such creeps. And I vowed to myself that I ever did become a lawyer that I wouldn't treat my clients that way. And so I really do go out of my way to try and help people. And sometimes it's cost me. And that's why I tell all of you, I make my money from the cases that I don't take. So even if I can't take your case, it doesn't mean that I won't try and offer you information to help you find a resolution without me getting a headache and us hating each other over it. You know what I mean? I hope that makes sense. But I do want to listen to what you have to say. And if you have something that you think that I might be able to help you with, I have no issue listening to what you have to say. And if it's an out-of-state matter, I have associates in at least 30 states, and I can probably help you find someone to help you if it's a viable claim, at least if it's a financially viable claim, because obviously if it's a case where there's no upside for the law firm, the only way they'll do cases is by the hour. And a lot of you guys don't have $200, $300, $400, $500 an hour to pay a lawyer. So part of the educational process that I want to put my team MPE through is so you can learn how to evaluate and value a case. So you can understand things that you should and shouldn't do. So if you are going to sue someone, at least you'll understand how to build damages, because it's not just enough to show liability that your rights were violated. You don't want just nuisance damages, because then it makes no sense. It costs more money in court fees and costs and whatnot to bring a claim that there's no upside on. So I just want you guys to all understand that you don't have to hate every lawyer. The problem, I think, that most of you hate every lawyer is because every lawyer that you've talked to won't tell you what I'm telling you right now. And so what I try and do when I meet with clients and talk to them is explain to them the risk versus benefits in the Benjamin Franklin method of, taking a piece of paper and weighing the risks and benefits, because I want people to understand most lawyers are just jerks and they treat people with short shrift. And that's just that whole academic, I'm better than you mentality. And that's another reason why I recommend that you study law on a law study program and read for the law in the traditional way, such as the Knights Templar were allowing to be done at their castle outside of London. The best way to learn the law is to do it through a guild where you're studying under judges and lawyers and going to court and sweeping out the law office at night, becoming collegial and friendly. That's the best way. Just like with medicine, you've got to have an internship. Lawyer internships are what, a month at a law firm, maybe picking your nose, playing on Twitter. That's not the right way to do it. I tried 3 cases as a certified law student before I even got a law. So I became a lawyer on the law study program, and then I went to law school at night and got a JD. So when I graduated law school, I was graduated as Esquire because I was already a practicing attorney, the only one ever in the history of the school. I'm telling you guys, it's a superior program, and I want to teach you if anyone's interested. And then if you guys build me a big enough audience where I'm teaching you guys, then I'll go ahead and I'll start studying and take the Nevada bar. I promise you that. So next time, if Chille has a problem in Nevada, at least he'll have me to represent him. So with that being said, it's been about 57 minutes. We've had a decent Memorial Day audience. I want all of you to remember, Mikey B, the best way to learn law is through personal experience. I think so. I think you do need to have some book learning, of course. And you need to know the black letter law, of course. But yeah, law is a problem-solving speed exam. You have to rip through a fact pattern and come up with a solution quickly, and then execute a plan, because everything's based on timelines and they're strict. And judges like black robe taskmasters sometimes who just will rip your case apart. So you want to try and keep that case out of court. You don't want to have a bunch of reported cases. You want to have a bunch of settlements where you never had to get a judge involved. Trust me on that. So this bad chicken is over. Everyone, thanks for your attention. All right, let's OTVO. I respect that, Mikey B. All right, Chevy, bye. And there's a Team DLZ meeting coming up. So I guess I'm going to go ahead and let everybody go. Again, happy Memorial Day, especially to my beloved Marines. Semper Fidelis, and I am under arms, by the way. You just can't see it because I'll get banned, I guess. And that's the one thing I don't like about these new covers, guys. So we used to have these metal things you could put in, and we'd hit them with magic sizing or starch, and then we'd hit them with a blow dryer or an iron, and it would just make these things pop, right? See this thing right here? Like, it would just make it pop. So that's the only thing I don't like about it. But I love the Marpats. I just think they're gorgeous, this digital pattern. So my buddy who's in Marsoc bought me a bunch of these and sent them over for me, because I was like, dude, I want those, man. He's like, no way, dude. The Woodlands that you guys wore, that's what everybody wants to wear. And then he was showing me their special operations uniforms, and they kind of look like Woodlands, but they got like pads on the knees and stuff. Yeah, that's one of my buddies. He was an Anglico, and then he made a lap move over into the Raiders. So that was not Raiders, but Marsoc. I think he was critical support. I don't think he actually wasn't an actual Raider, but he's Marsoc. Still, it's badass, right? Purple heart, the gold wings. You can't really beat that. So anyways, so guys, I still need some ideas for future shows. Anything that has to do with contracts, torts, or criminal law. So if you have shorts of videos that you want me to go over, I did one on a car dealership, and a bunch of car dealership people who exposed bad car dealers reached out to me, and they were thanking me because nobody's doing it for them. And so if you have something, you know, that's out of the ordinary, not just like a cop auditor, I mean, it can be, but something that's, you know, I'm a lawyer, so it doesn't just have to be a cop harassing someone. I mean, there's other stuff that goes wrong out there where you got stuff going on that's a legal issue, like someone's being mistreated at a bank, or, you know, kids are being harassed by a school teacher or something like that, you know. So anything like that you guys want me to talk about, I love teaching, and I love doing this because my kids get to see their dad, you know, building a channel, and I'm teaching them how to be entrepreneurs. So it's really, really a great learning experience for all of us. So now, thank you again, David Murphy, for showing up. Oh yeah, thanks, David. And if you get a chance, David, take a look at the one that I did about the civil grand jury. Super cool video, man. It's about an hour or so, but it's good. And we did one on Team DLZ today that was pretty badass, that got into all the perks that the Vegas cops are getting, and how there's just no accountability, no transparency at all, like 900 referrals to like their public accountability thing, and nothing's going on. It's all just getting swept under the rug. And I just want you guys to check that out, and then support this newspaper out there. It's the Las Vegas something or the other. Support that paper. You know, anybody who's got a foundation or secretly rich, support these journalists, man. Those guys, those guys are good. I'm telling you, man, they don't have journalists like that anymore. It's just, they're almost non-existent. So independent journalism is a thing of the past. Everything's run by like Soros and BlackRock, all this for-profit media. It's all bullshit. You can't get any truth from any of them. They're all just liars. And all their fact checks are all lies too. They're all based on stuff that's not even in the article. They'll make up a story that doesn't even exist in your actual article, and then say that what they made up is false, and then use that as an excuse to ban you in like, you know, shadow ban your social media account. Just craziness. So anyways, happy Memorial Day, everybody. But Dr. Donna, it's not a hat, it's a cover. It's a freaking cover there, you. Yeah, we just do it a little bit different. Oh, by the way, just a little Marine Corps lore. So if you don't wear, if your cover falls off, or you walk outdoors without your cover, they'll say, put a cover on that great Marine, and you got to go like this. If you can't find your cover, you walk around with a hand on your head. It's freaking hilarious. So it's just really funny. Oh man. Good stuff. Hit that like and subscribe button. And then I'm gonna bounce out of here, guys. So everybody, make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to save, because we never know when the thought police are gonna take down this channel. Semper Fi, do or die.